Thanks for coming back. Yesterday you heard already a lot about the new era of automation and basically the vision we have of being the unified orchestration layer for everything agentic, but also like still everything deterministic and so on and so forth. And today we want to focus it on seeing that in action, because Jakob talked about that yesterday as well. Slides are cheap in a way, but it's always about like really seeing it. And that's what we want to focus on today. So I actually skipped any introduction slide and just wanted to go into that right away. We do a demo today in actually, I think, 3 episodes along the keynote. And the general story is relatively simple. So assume you're bank, and you probably have to, the clicker does weird things. Your bank, and you get in like requests, for example, an email with the customer asking something. Then you have an agent sorting that out and giving the customer a proper response. And then we have the AI agent actually sorting that out. That's the typical loop you see with agents. So you have an LLM basically doing the decision logic that might access certain memory. It has certain tools or actions at its disposal, so it can basically do things or query things using the tools for that, getting new answers back, deciding what's next, and doing that loop. Probably also like looping in the human, like the employee or the customer, or asking things, and at some point in time, hopefully resolving the issue. Okay, and that's what we want to look at, but live. I start things off with an email. So I write an email to, for example, here, my Camunda demo bernd@gmail.com. Please do not use that email just yet. Okay, wait an hour, then you can send any email, but probably not just yet. Because it works actually. So it's live, so if you send in an email, you will be on screen, but please. So hello Camunda Bank, I need to get the account details for my checkings account. Simple question, I give them my customer ID, and I send in that email. What happens in the background is that actually this agent will be called. It's a Camunda process, so it's basically a BPMN process. What you see, it goes in that agent sub-process we introduced. It's for the BPMN nerds here, that's an ad-hoc sub-process. Basically, you can configure everything you need for the agent on that sub-process directly. So for example, we can pick any provider, so we have a lot of them out of the box. You can also bring your own, so if you have an LLM like in-house, you can of course also plug that in. You can select the model for whatever you want to do there. You define a system prompt, something like you're a helpful account support agent that handles customer conversations, and so on and so forth. That's typically where a lot of the meat is. Oh, I got it to do. We come back to that later. And of course, you have to provide the user prompt. So that's basically the request that comes in from the customer, in this case via email. And that's basically the whole configuration for the agent itself here. And then I have a handful of what's typically called tools. In the AI world, we call them typically tasks here. So for example, I want to retrieve loyalty points information. I basically pull that in to show that you can use all the Camunda capabilities here that you already know and love. So it could be, in this case, a microservice doing it, a Java program, a Python program, whatever it is. You can use all the connectors. So for example, checking something in SAP, or also checking something in your core banking system, if you like. You can escalate to the human. So that could open up like a user task, how we call that, to ask something for the employee, and I can communicate with the customer. There is one other thing here which is pretty interesting, and we go into that in a bit more depth, which is the so-called MCP task. MCP, you might have heard of that. It's the Model Context Protocol. It got quite a hype in the AI world. And the idea behind MCP is that you can basically, your software could describe its own functionality via MCP. So you have like, these are basically the tools I provide. This is the metadata, what it does, and these are kind of the parameters. And that allows the agent or the AI to understand what software functions it could call. And we have support, we added support for MCP. So I'm basically pointing that to an MCP server. Okay, and actually understanding MCP might be a bit more interesting if we look at what it does in the background. So if I go to Operate is our operations tool. So there I see what's actually going on. thank you for not sending any emails. So I can look into my account support agent, what we just saw in the modeler earlier on. And what you can see is that it already executed a couple of things. So it executed the MCP task 3 times. Why is that? We can look into the details to get all the tracing here. So there was a first call to MCP. And I'm not sure if that's readable. I hope so in the back, but I read it out. It basically called the tools list method from MCP. So it basically told the MCP server, tell me all the tools you have. So that's really a dynamic resolution. You can add governance on that. So in the modeling part, you could say only those tools or these tools not or whatever. But this really queries the tools dynamically. So if there's a new tool available, the agent could use it immediately. And then it gets a list of tools. And the list of tools you could, for example, if you like, also see. Like here, there are a lot of tools like the Inform Customer tool. That's a tool which you could see on the modeling pane. And I know that's a lot of JSON and a lot of scrolling, but we don't have much time. If you go further down, you see other tools like Search Customer, and that's something that came from the MCP server, or Get Customer Profile, or Get Active Products, Freeze Account, Unfreeze Account, Change Password, whatever. So all these are tools that are provided by the MCP server, and the agent can directly use that, and that's actually what it does. So the next thing it does here is an operation, get customer profile for me, and then I think the next one, what was that? Let's check. Get active products, right? So it basically uses those tools in order to answer my question. That's what the agent should do. And then the last thing it does, it basically has the Inform Customer here. We look into the details a bit later, but it basically means that it sends me an email. So I got a response from my agent. Yeah, here are the details of your checking account. It's demo data, so you don't have to make a photograph of that. OK, so that was our first agent in action. There was one more thing you could probably see, that I mixed already a little bit of the what we call the dynamic parts, where the AI decides what you do, with deterministic parts. So I say whenever the agent is ready, the next thing I want to do is, in this case, open up a user task for doing something. So you can mix and match that however you want. And like we also discussed a couple of times yesterday, it might be sometimes a really good idea not to make everything an agent, but to make things deterministic where you don't need the flexibility of the AI in a way. So that opened up a task, and that's what you saw earlier on. You saw a notification from Teams. So in this demo, I used Microsoft Teams as kind of the employee engagement tool. So we have our own tools, Camunda task list, so you could use that, or you could use others. But I use Teams for the sake of the demo, because it's actually what a lot of customers really like doing, not sending people to a different tool. So I should have assigned that to me while talking, but that gives us a quick pause. I would have asked the people to do the task in a second, but thank you. So we already did that. What you can see is the form I defined for that user task, also in Teams. So if I've done that, it basically continues that, and that actually already concludes our first agent. And with that, I would quickly hand it over to Bastian.
Awesome. You get in
we come back to that in a second.
So let's recap what we have seen. And first thing we have seen is the account support agent, right? And the account support agent is new in 8.8, so you can actually template ad hoc sub-process. What does it actually mean? Bernd already showed it. We can define LLM providers. So again, composability. You can use any kind of LLM you want to use. And then you can define the prompt. I'm always saying the prompt is basically the identity of the account support agent. So you're telling the agent, hey, you're an account support agent, and the goal you want to achieve is this. In this case, we want to make the customer actually happy. And then you can add additional functionalities. So what we have seen is maximal token consumption, but also memory handling and so on. The beauty of the ad-hoc sub-process is actually that it's natively integrated in ZB, which means our agents can be long running. So we can wait for customer interactions. Doesn't matter if it's seconds, minutes, or maybe we can also answer tomorrow via email in this case. So we're really having the full state management in ZB and not inside our agent. And we talked about this ad-hoc sub-process, and I just want to double down why this ad-hoc sub-process is such a good fit for AI agents. The ad-hoc sub-process is nothing we invented. It's actually from BPMN made back in the days. I actually don't know the exact date. But it was made for human case management. This means normally I use this and assign a human to it and say, hey, that's the goal you want to achieve. And to achieve these goals, I give you the following tasks. So you can have access to Salesforce, you can get the customer data from Salesforce, you can execute the following actions to be successful. And we're using exactly this pattern for AI agents as well. The tools can be simple tasks, can be full deterministic processes, can be nested sub-process, event sub-process, and also can be deterministic flows. And again, everything is in our ZB engine. And this not just allows us to build a single agent, but also building multi-agent orchestration. And to see how this will look like in action is we're having our agentic BPMN process, end-to-end process. This could be deterministic, dynamic. Normally, it's a combination of both. Our agentic BPMN engine, which is actually our ZB engine, consumes this BPMN process, has access to LLM, to long-term memory. But what is really key here is it's still an orchestration engine. This means it's durable. It's persistent state, so which just allows us really having long-running processes, and you're having the full audit log of the execution. This, combined with access to tools, which means human-in-the-loop, AI-based automation, traditional automation patterns, system integration, creates a super, super powerful platform. And to go back to the demo, I also want to highlight one other thing, and that's omni-channel customer engagement. We will see more. I'm doing a bit of a teaser with Bernd, but the agent can actually communicate in omni-channels. You will see later on that we are not just communicating via email, what you already have seen, via chat, but also via phone. And everything can be done via message correlation. So even if the chat, if the session is out, or that, yesterday I gave the example, okay, I'm chatting with my support agent, but now I'm getting a phone call from the kindergarten. I need to pick up my child. So I'm stopping the chat interaction, and then our agent can follow up with an email. We are persisting the state, and so I can continue the conversation via email later on. The second thing we are seeing is omnichannel for employees. We have seen this user task. Behind this user task is actually a Camunda form. This Camunda form can be rendered in different systems, and the goal behind this is actually meeting employees where they are. So this form can be rendered in Camunda task lists, but also the same form can be rendered in Microsoft Teams, what we have seen, or in SAP. The beauty of this is your employees don't need to learn a new UI, don't need to learn a new user experience. They can stay focused because they're using this application day to day. They can act fast because they're getting the tasks inside the application they're normally using. They can collaborate in context, which means I can send and maybe forward this task to my colleague who knows it better. Then we can have this conversation in threads and can solve this task inside Microsoft Teams. All these capabilities actually improve the efficiency for all roles across the whole process. The last thing I want to mention is enterprise application integration. Bernd already showed the MCP protocol, right? So I will not go detailed into this, but what is crucial? Everyone talks about MCP, A2A around agents, but who's really ready for this? But we want to use the agent technology now. And with Camunda agents, you can use any kind of tool you're normally using in deterministic processes. Well, and if I'm saying everything, I mean everything. So it means Camunda out-of-the-box automations like RPA, connectors, full VPN processes, DMN, classical protocols like REST, messaging, but also SOAP, right? So we still have this. And if this is not enough, you can still go into Pro Code, you can build your own job worker, and having the full flexibility. I would love to double down on 2 new protocols, and we mentioned already MCP and A2A, and let's have a look how they're actually working. The Camunda agent has access to an out-of-the-box MCP connector. This allows the agent, what we have seen, to list tools. Right? So in our case, it's an account system. We are seeing all the tools, but it could be also SAP, Salesforce, Workday. So we can get the list of tools. We can get the list of services. We have one unified API, so the agent knows how to interact with this API. And the beauty of this is we can share context. So what it means is I'm getting response from SAP for my customer data, for my customer. And now I want to call Salesforce as well, because I need additional information. The agent has the context and can directly call the next system with the information it already has. This is super powerful for tools. Another thing is, what happens with all the agents you may be already building? Jakob mentioned yesterday, agents are popping up like mushrooms. So how can I handle this? How can I really orchestrate those kind of agents? And there the A2A protocol comes into the game. A2A stands for agent to agent. So the A2A protocol helps you to connect on a standardized way with other agents. It's basically communication protocol from agent to agent. And you can talk to Koerber AI, Procode like LangChain, NetN, Microsoft, and so on. It's one standardized protocol. All those platforms are speaking, and Camunda is speaking this as well. It's secure, reliable context and state, and for Camunda unique, ZB durability, right? So everything is built in ZB. And what I mean with everything is built in ZB, for us, A2A is not just a backend protocol. As we were thinking about this A2A protocol, we were thinking about, okay, how can we actually implement this again in BPMN? And there we came up with 2 patterns, actually. So let's see if this is working. Oh, perfect. So we're having here an inbound event, which means any kind of agent can call a Camunda agent. So that's what we are seeing here. And then the agent can do some magic, and later on can respond to the agent as well. This is an asynchronous protocol. But also inside the agent, we're having 2 other patterns. We can call synchronous another agent, or we can call and trigger an agent and can wait for the response. In between, we can do some other magic. So as you can see, you can do a lot with one agent. You can orchestrate other agents, but one is the technology side. But Bernd, can you share with us how we can do this in enterprise on scale?
Happy to. Okay, so one theme we also had yesterday, and I think Saikat Ray especially touched on that, you might end up with a lot of agents actually across the enterprise. It's not like you have a 1, 2, 3, 5 agents, it's more the hundreds or the thousands of agents. And how can we handle that if we already have our spaghetti architecture out there, right? And Jakob alluded to that, like just throwing in the agents in that environment might not make things better, it might even make it worse to some extent, even if you have quick wins. So what to do? And one of the really, in that case, good news is that we can build on a lot of methodology that we learned over the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years. Even if the AI technology is new, a lot of the methodology behind, you can still apply to that. And one thing I want to highlight here, so I wrote a book together with my colleague Leon that came out in April. It's a good book, so I can recommend that. We have some at the booth, but that's not the point. The point is, it goes into some technical things like enterprise architecture, or probably, for example, things like if I want to do a platform play in my organization, how should I use multi-tenancy? Should I use multi-cluster? So there's a bit of technology in there, but really also from an organizational perspective. And that's also what it touches on, like team topologies, how it fits to business architecture, and so on and so forth. And one thing, for example, we defined in there, and that really came out after talking to really a lot of our customers that apply Camunda on a really huge scale, is this business architecture we wrote down. We base it on layers, of course, and these are the 3 layers I want to touch on here today. So if we start on the top, the layer 3 for us are strategic end-to-end processes. They typically map to what your customer wants to have, so they really should implement the customer journey from the organization perspective. That's my end-to-end process. Then we need business capabilities that I, as an organization, need to be able to do to fulfill those end-to-end processes. And then I might need integration capabilities into whatever legacy systems, IT software, whatever. Nowadays, very often called tools, if you talk about AI, integration on the lowest level. And so far, what we've seen was the account support capability implemented by the account support agent we just had a couple of minutes ago. And that uses account tools underneath. You remember the example from 10 minutes ago, right? Okay, that was that. But of course, that's not all of it. So of course, you typically, I don't use that clicker. Let's go there. They're sorted by domains. That's a very typical thing. So you have a lot of domains. For example, the customer and account servicing. That domain might also have, of course, a lot of other capabilities. You have more domains, and those also have capabilities. And that's how you typically sketch out a capability map. I think that's nothing new. There's a lot of literature also available around that. We have customers doing that, and they have very good experiences with that. The important thing here is the capability. It's not focusing too much on the implementation, but really what capabilities do I have to do? It could be now any kind of implementation. Could be humans doing it, could be Camunda processes doing it, could be a microservice, and nowadays could also be an agent. Right. And then on top, and that's actually where the rubber hits the road, you need to look at the end-to-end process, because that's, again, like mapping the customer journey. And if you don't do that right, your customer gets lost into different capabilities that the organization can do, but they don't feel done in the right way for you because you don't succeed your goal typically. And in our example, that's the bank support as kind of the overarching end-to-end process. And then, okay, I have more tools there. And then looking at it from a slightly different angle, more the implementation angle, I had my account support agent. That was a BPMN agent, a Camunda agent. I will add on top now my bank support agent, so that does it more holistically. That also does the channel handling to some extent. And that can not only orchestrate my account support agent, but it can also orchestrate a loan support agent if I want to do anything loan related. And I also, for the sake of demo, I added also a card support agent, like anything around credit card. In this case, that's not a Camunda built thing, but that's exactly demoing the A2A protocol in this case, because that's let's say a legacy agent. It's done in Python with LangChain based on OpenAI in this case. And then if you look at the lines, for example, they can be, of course, BPMN invocations. So that's what I do in the demo. So if you know Camunda, BPMN is a call activity. So I just call it. Very easy to trace. But architecturally, if that's not what you want to do, because you follow more a microservice mindset, let's say, and you want to have them as detached capabilities, you might simply use an API for calling the other capability. Or you might use A2A, or probably even MCP in the future. So the best practices around MCP and A2A are not yet there. They're emerging at the moment. But that's kind of the picture we want to get to. And one last thing, to make it even a bit more interesting, we added also a deterministic process around loan application, which is also not that unrealistic. If you think about the loan support might be very, very dynamic in terms of what questions it get. But then at some point, if the customer wants to have a loan, I want to follow a very structured process actually to go through. And that's what we also added. That's kind of like what Jakob had in his keynote with a chatbot, that it couldn't rebook the flight. That's more or less this part. At some point in time, I want to go to a real capability there. Okay, does that make sense? I have to ask that. Yes. Okay, good. Then let's look at that. I go back to my demo from early on. For everybody that had eagle eyes, and I know it's not easy for the rows in the back, but you might have seen that this was called already by the bank support agent. So that was already in play with the demo. And if I zoom in a little bit, probably not that much. Is that readable? Yes? Okay, cool. So we got an email because I used that channel. It loaded the customer data. So for the demo, I basically just assumed you're a registered customer already, and then it forwarded it to the account support agent. So that's what happened. But, thank you, book. You can see that we have more channels. So the next one, for example, here is chat. So I can also chat with the support agent. So let's go to chat. And let's say, what does that say? Try not to touch the mic. OK, I try to. Thank you, Lisa. I forgot what I wanted to ask. Hi there. I need a personal loan, let's say $5,000, to throw a small after party after CamundaCon. Probably €5,000 doesn't bring me far in New York, but for the sake of the example, let's see what's happening there. So that actually should kick off a new process. It should. There we go. There's my bank support agent, different channel, and it forwarded the request to loan support, which makes sense, right? That was the LLM deciding that. The loan support agent is a bit actually bigger because we wanted to show a bit more things, so it's more advanced, if you will. First of all, it works with memory. So I make that even a bit bigger. So it fetches all the conversation with the customer from the past, from a vector database in this case. So the agent can make use of the history of things. That's the first thing that we added. A couple of other things that you probably can also see. We added more long-term memory here. So the example is if the LLM is not confident enough to decide, it can basically escalate to a human. The human gets a form and can make a decision and describe the decision. And they can decide to store that in a knowledge base. And that knowledge base can also be queried by the LLM later on. That means it's self-learning over time for the decisions the human makes here. But nothing we probably look in the demo. And a couple of other tools. I mean, you see that we do more things here, like, for example, we added RPA. We have a couple of flows. So if I load existing customer loans, I always also load legacy loans via RPA and these kind of things. So you can really blend in dynamic and deterministic here. But what it did actually, and you can see that here, it loaded the available consumer loan products via SQL database. That's for the sake of the demo. So that's what it did, and then we see that here, it asks the customer. Now we can also look into what does ask customer mean for everybody that knows BPMN. That's a call activity, the thick line. So I can go into a sub-process that actually handles the customer communication, and you can basically see that this, again, does the multi-channel handling, the omni-channel here. So I came in via chatbot, so it asks back via chatbot, waits for the response, and that's what Bastian said earlier on. If it waits for too long, for example, it might fall back to email. That are things you can control, but that's probably not what we need to do now. So I should have an answer, okay? So thank you for the interest in personal loan. We can offer 3 options. And by the way, you can, of course, chat with it in a couple of steps, like building there. I just wanted to save time, and I gave it more or less exactly what I know the LLM wants to have from me. What should we do? Let's go with option 1. That should be okay. So I basically answer that. It goes back to my process. Whoa. So what we can see, it waited for the answer. It correlated it. It goes on. We're back in the loan support agent. That actually should process my thing, and it might need a second. Let's refresh here. That's the moment where people wake up. Does it ask again? Did it ask again?
Yeah.
It did ask again.
Yeah.
The typo is not a problem for the AI. Thank you for selecting the 12 months term option. To proceed, what's your yearly income? That's quite here on stage. No, let's do let's do something. Yearly income. 50K. Currently employed.
It definitely have a salary increase from the last year.
It does, yeah, it does.
Amsterdam.
And that's the non-deterministic part. It's even not all the time the same, but okay, I got that. Are you currently employed? Yes, if the demo goes. Okay. No outstanding loans. I should be okay. Let's see. The good thing is you can see what's going on, and that's one of the big assets.
Maybe you can also turn on the show execution count so that we can see.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So it thinks about it. Okay, great. That's actually where I wanted to end up with. It now kicked off really the loan application. Oh, I have a task. I have to do that. That's a deterministic thing, so it might do some checks, know your customer credit fraud, and it goes in a human decision. Let's do the human decision for the sake of the example. As you can see, and Bastian said early on, it's a form defined in Camunda, now shown in Teams. I still could go to task list, see exactly the same thing, and let's approve it, and move on. That's probably something you already know, and then I see that it's actually moving along. I might have to refresh here quickly. And you could also see that this also uses the inform customer, and that means if I go back to my chat, I even get information about that. Oh, my loan was approved. We now go into the structured process behind that. Okay, so far, so good. I think I have 2 spare minutes because I was talking fast. Am I talking too fast? Oh, okay, good. Because then I can show one more thing, which I was not sure if we find the time.
But they know it's working, right?
What?
They know it's working, so they really want to risk it.
Yeah. I'm pretty confident it's working. Let's say a 90%. Because we talked about A2A earlier on, and the credit card thingy. I could now also get in a request where I say I lost my credit card. And what's happening now is that this, again, is a different process. That should now be handled. And there's where the time goes that we just saved. It's now handled via the A2A agent, actually. And the only thing, because that's a Python program, it's not that visible, so we can't look at it graphically, but I basically have the logs open, and if we look in the logs, you can basically see, and I'm not sure if you can actually see that, but it basically does a couple of those decisions like, okay, what you have to do is verify the customer's identity, immediately block, blah, 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 blah. So basically now the Python LangChain agent does it works, and basically decides what to do, and gives us the information back, and then the bank support agent takes the communication with the customer for it, because the Python tool cannot do that. So in this case, we're getting back to the customer saying, I understand you lost your credit card, blah, blah, blah. To proceed, we need those informations. And that's now basically queried from, or basically given to the A2A. The A2A gives us back at like, okay, we still need to do something. So for example, the ending on 234, please lock that, and that it will move on. That's probably it for the moment. Going back, because we have another demo and a bit of slides. Just to recap what we saw, in the loan support agent, there were a couple of things that we added, like in comparison to the account agent, which are worth to highlight. First of all, and you might recognize that on the slide. On the slide, I used a BPMN model. We did half a year, and I have something to do. We did half a year ago in Amsterdam for the demo. And you might see one thing, if you have, again, eagle eyes, we have the ad-hoc sub-process with a lot of tools, but we have the agent as a separate agent task above, and we modeled a loop with the tools. I'm sorry. So what that does, it basically gives you control over the decision loop, which you can also, I have hidden that earlier on in the ad-hoc sub-process. If I only use the ad-hoc sub-process, it's hidden behind that, but you can control it. And then you can add whatever, certain checks to avoid prompt injection, for example, and other things. Okay, Then we have tools. Then we have the long-term memory. We have different long-term memories. And we also have things like agent as a judge, looking at like how was the communication handled by the other agents, or agents basically watching each other. So there are a lot of things you can easily plug in there. And second, like within the loan support agent, you could see also something we now changed in the demo today, because we have that in like ask customer sub-process, because that's more realistic to what you normally do. But this is actually very prescriptive in what the technology can do for you, because if it sends out an email, it does the weighting afterwards. It does deterministic, it's long running, it can correlate and all of those things, right? You can put the human in the loop, you can have sequences of things, and the AI can decide if it does use the tool at all, but if it uses it, the whole flow is executed. And you have the full power of BPMN, so you can use everything BPMN can do, like BPMN escalation events, message events, timer events, all of that great stuff, and connectors. Okay. With that, Bastian.
Awesome. So what you have seen is how can we actually scale agentic AI across the enterprise. But what is really key and what we haven't seen is scaling requires observability. Imagine your agents are taking decisions autonomously. What happens if a decision goes wrong? How do you understand that what actually happened? Why the agent actually decided like that? And therefore, we're having operate, right? So in operate, you're getting the full visibility of the agent execution. You're seeing the full log, what actually happened. You're seeing the full reasoning process. And you understand what actually happened, why the agent decided like that, and can operate on that. Second thing is what can happen is, for example, your LLM provider goes down. I hope it will never go down, but it can happen. What can you actually do? You can switch to another LLM provider via process instance migration, right? So you can reconfigure this. Or if a system goes down, you can retry this. Since we are using the whole ZB engine, you can use every pattern you're normally knowing from deterministic processes in non-deterministic processes as well. Second one is optimization, right? So we are doing automation because we want to save money. We want to improve customer experience. But also we want to show this. And therefore we're having optimize. In optimize, you can create dashboards for cycle time, throughput, and also you can see if the agent actually hits its SAA. But also it's about return of investment, right? So you want to understand, okay, now I created this cool agent. Now I see the value, but do I actually get the money back which I actually invested? Is the return of investment okay? And the third one is, I want to understand bottlenecks. How can I improve my agent? How can I improve my enterprise agentic automation, not just a single one, but across the end-to-end experience? And therefore, we can do bottleneck analysis, we can find expensive variants, and we can optimize. That's what we're already having in our tool. There's much more you can do, and we will do. And one thing is, we're announcing Camunda Hub. Camunda Hub helps you to scale through self-service and reuse. We're solving with Camunda Hub the 4 biggest enterprise automation challenges. First one, speed. We want to accelerate time to value. Second one is scalability. We want to unlock a scalable adoption for your teams. Third is about trust. We want to ensure governance and compliance. And fourth one is business impact. We want to maximize return of investment. And now the question is, okay, what is actually Camunda Hub? Is it a new tool? Do we need to install something else? No, what we're actually doing is we are merging WebModeler and Console together to create a platform. This platform enables us to create more apps. And what we're thinking about right now is business dashboards. I'm always explaining this like the manager dashboard. Assume you are the automation lead, and then your manager is coming, maybe just behind your seat, and ask, what are you actually doing? And then you're showing exactly this dashboard and say, those are my KPIs, that's the impact of what I'm doing day to day. This is the business impact I'm achieving with my automation initiatives. Second one is cluster and job worker management, right? This is more the center of excellence perspective. We're having this already in our console software as a service, but we also want to bring it to self-manage. We want to make sure that you can easily spin up new clusters, that you can enable your teams for self-service. but also making sure that you have the right job workers connected, getting visibility in your job worker execution, and also can scale them based on your need. The third one, and that's the key enabler for scalability, but also speed, private marketplace. We have seen, for example, the omni-channel experience, right? I'm having channels like phone, email, what was the last one? Chat. Exactly. And this is a repeatable pattern, right? So I don't need to reinvent the wheel. So I can just build a reusable pattern and can share this with my team, can share this with my org, right? And that's exactly what we're doing with the private marketplace. We are offering you a platform where you can create reusable building blocks. You can share them with your team, you can share them with your organization, and you have everything under control because we are adding their governance and compliance layer on top of that. And the last one, since Camunda Hub becomes an enterprise platform, organization management gets key, right? So you need to control who can see what, who can do what, and that's exactly what we're doing. One thing is missing on this slide. It's actually our orchestration engine. Where is it? Let's have a look at this. As we were discussing the Camunda Hub, one thing was key. We don't want to have centralized execution. We still want to have the execution decentralized and the management centralized, because you want to control how you want to scale each cluster. Yeah? And that's exactly what you can still do. The clusters are decentralized, the management is centralized. So the Camunda Hub can actually manage our orchestration clusters, and feeds back the data. This gives us a lot of possibilities to improve the user experience in WebModeler, to create business dashboards, but also, and that's the query tools, we can add more and more MCP and A2A endpoints. So you can basically spin up new MCP endpoints and A2A on our platform. So can we now really accelerate? From center of excellence perspective, for sure. But what we also need to do, we need to improve solution creation. We need to accelerate the solution creation, because then I actually can scale. I can spin up new solutions. And this always starts with the developer. Right now, we are supporting the Node.js and Spring Boot Java SDK. This is cool, but this is not enough. You're seeing more and more Python developers and so on who want to use our tools, C# developers who want to use our tools. So we decided to support officially our SDKs for Python and C# so that you can also onboard new Python developers, new C# developers with an official supported SDK, which is maintained by Camunda, and you're having the enterprise support. This enables especially the AI agentic cases, right? So there you have a lot of Python developers. Actually, what we're seeing is that the data center of excellence merging together with the automation center of excellence, and that's a key enabler. They can stay in their language, but they're having one platform to orchestrate. This is about building new implementation patterns, integrations, logic builds. But what about actually solutions? Daniel mentioned already yesterday and announced that we are changing our agentic copilot, the next evolution. So what we actually want to achieve is we want to get from the idea to an executable process in minutes. Not hours, not days, minutes. How can we actually achieve this? We are already having our copilots, they're having a logic, but we need to concatenate them. Exactly what we're doing with the support agent, where we're adding more and more agents, and they can orchestrate, they can iterate, they have really like this reasoning process and interactions. We want to have the same experience with our agentic copilot as well. And if you're doing this right, you can also add your custom copilots to our agentic copilot. You can plug in your enterprise domain copilots into our copilots. And this will open up the use cases for end-to-end process creation, but also compliance domain copilots alongside standards, and rapid prototyping of executable process. Now the question is, okay, how do we actually get there? But now we are here. We're having our BPMN copilot, we're having our field copilot, we're having our form copilot, and with 8.8 it will be also available in self-managed, where you can bring your own model. Again, composability. We will take those copilots and add them actually in a pattern what we have described today multiple times, and Bastian touched on this as well. So our Copilot becomes agentic. And this allows us actually that the Copilot is not just can be triggered by our interface, but also can be triggered by tickets. For example, GitHub issue. You can create a Jira issue, can listen to this event and kick off the first execution of this Copilot. You can define optimized triggers. So basically, you can define a timer event every 12 hours. I want to check if my processes are actually executing like I'm defined this, right? So if we're still hitting the KPIs. And then it also can suggest optimization. And you can use the classical Copilot interface, which we have seen already. What you can do as well is you can load knowledge and guidelines. So every company wants to create their BPMN file in their way. They want to inject company knowledge into this in a safe way. So that's also, again, why it will be composable. You can add your custom agent, and also per agent, you can define which model you want to use. And also, you can bring your own model. So you can decide, I'm AWS customer, I just want to go with the AWS models, and I'm Google customer, I want to go with my GCP models. It's totally up to you. And the most exciting for me is you can also leverage agentic BPMN. What do I mean by that? We will provide our copilots as, again, BPMN processes. And what you can do there is you can customize exactly our standardized copilots for your needs. You can load upfront company BPMN guidelines. You can load your knowledge. You can add custom logic, and I'm really curious to see next year what kind of custom logic you come up with, because we are building this tool and then opening up this platform for you guys, and normally you're coming up with much more crazy ideas than we are having, and I always love to see that. Also, what you can do at the end is privacy check, or whatever you would like to do. So you have the full customization possibility for our Copilot. And how will it look like? You're having basically, in this case, a Copilot user interface. You know, the user is triggering the solution agent. Then the solution agent defines, okay, is it an optimization case? Is it a new case? What kind of tools do I need to call? And then at the end, you're getting the first iteration of a loan support agent, and then you can iterate. And this iteration is really important. Imagine you're having a business sponsor who's coming to you and say, okay, I want to have a loan support agent. How does it actually look like? How can we do this? And that's exactly what you can do, rapid prototyping. You can start with this prompt and say, hey, that's how it could look like, and then let's iterate. So the business gets an understanding what you can do, and you can really brainstorm together, and that's the whole goal of this Copilot, brainstorming together. But this is just starting from the first idea. What about if you don't want to start with an idea, you want to start with a proved solution, which is already used by several customers? Also for this, we're having an answer. We are presenting Camunda business solution blueprints. So what is actually behind this? We want to solve real business problems. We want to make it easy to customize, ready for production, and really important, built and maintained by Camunda. And what you have seen today, the loan support agent, that's exactly the first solution we will announce today. This will be part in our Camunda marketplace, where you can reuse exactly those building blocks. You can customize this for your need, but you're having effective BPMN patterns which are proved and continuously getting improved by Camunda. But this is just a start. We will add more agentic solutions to our marketplace, and not just Camunda, our partners as well. And talking about partners, what would be a solution without technical partners?
That's good segue. Thanks, Bastian. Yeah, we also, and that's actually an interesting area to explore. I mean, you can have ready-to-use templates or business solution, but the other things is you might have ready-to-go solutions from other organizations, and you want to plug that into Camunda. There's the composability aspect, so that's perfectly fine. And we also make that easier for you with a lot of the technology partnerships we're driving. And you can explore that in the marketplace or whatever. And we have some of them on the slide. I want to make two quick examples here. One, is, for example, Liferay. You might have a customer engagement portal or the employee engagement thing, your internal portal on Liferay. Then it's super simple to actually also plug into that. There's a technical solution for that. Or I want to showcase also something today. That's the last demo with actually 2 partners. What we do, first of all, Get Vocal. That's kind of the customer interface. They do kind of an AI-driven customer interaction with voice, for example. And Tactile, they do the high-stakes decisioning. So let's look at how that is in real life. And therefore, I want to start with Tactile, actually. I want to get back to that process, which you hopefully remember from a couple of minutes ago, where we did the manual decision for the loan approval. And I want to change that. Because as you can see, I did a couple of steps for your customer credit checks, and therefore I typically have to include third-party data providers, which are not always easy to integrate, and probably also the same decision flow you do for every bank in the world again, might be depending on the country and whatever. And there I want to use Tactile because they focus on exactly that thing. So if we go to the loan application process here. If you're lucky like me, then you just have to go to the right because there's something prepared for you, which is the Tactile connector. You find that also in the marketplace, but it's really simple. I just get the right decision flow on the Tactile side and do a bit of data mapping, like what I have in my process, mapping that to the API. So that's straightforward, and then I can basically use that instead of the former manual decision. Let's make it a bit nice that we can see that it's something changed here. This is, according to our best practices, the way you have to do it. And I deployed. I always use that as a proof that it's live because you can't redraw that. Try that. So if we go back to operate, and now I could start a new loan application process. That's also interesting, but I found it more interesting actually to recycle that instance to see what happens, to compare basically the decisions. And therefore I can use like features in the operation tool. So I can take that one instance that's currently waiting here and migrate it to the latest and greatest process version with that nice little touch here. So I basically do that. And these are features that are actually important for long-running things. So that might be your processes, but actually also your agents. As soon as they communicate, they get long-running. And these are the problems you have to solve for long-running systems at play. So I actually update that. If I go back into that, you also already see that process instance got updated to the latest version. And then I use a feature which I always call token jump. So I jump back there. So I basically say, do it again from here, apply it. And what happens now, it's basically going there. It re-executes it. We can probably refresh it. It should refresh it. Right, it executed Tactile. And what we can see now in the variables, which are, I agree, a little bit slow here, we can see that there was a Tactile decision now. It was accepted. And for example, just very briefly, it also gives me the trace URL for the Tactile system. So I can go in there and I see the exact decision flow that was executed for that instance. You see it's kind of a tree-like structure. And there is the example, what I meant earlier on. So for example, that you have an integration to Experian. It's very easy here because that's what they already have in templates and blueprints. Do I have to say you have to use Tactile for that? Of course not, but if you either already have it or if you want to use that, that again might accelerate your own solution building. And we see our role as making it as easy as possible for you to stitch those things together. If you don't want to use it, you can, of course, also make the decision flow in Camunda. So that was the one thing with Tactile, and we want to do the second thing now with actually a third channel, which is Get Vocal, allows me to do voice. Let's also refresh that.
Don't forget your headset.
Right. Thank you, Bastian. I have to do a conversation, and because the team has prepared a great headset for me for that. So there we go. Because now I can phone with the agent. And let's see if that goes. Failed to create. That is interesting. Let's try it again. The longer it takes, the more exciting it gets. So there we go.
Hi, I am Mark, your virtual assistant from Camunda Bank. If you are already an existing customer, please state your customer ID.
Hello, Mark. This is Bernd calling, actually from stage at CamundaCon. My customer ID is 42.
Could you please provide your PIN? Make sure nobody is eavesdropping.
Okay, so that's it's 4040.
Perfect. You are now identified.
Yay.
How can I help you today?
I actually want to have a loan to buy a new car. Okay, let's keep it there. And because we're kind of out of time, but what I can see now is that it started also the bank support. Now here via the get vocal start, you can see actually the message that's coming in. And if I untangle the cable correctly, I can remove that. And then you could have the whole conversation also with voice, for example. That's another example. And you can, of course, also plug in other tools you want to use for voice or omni-channel interaction. It's just
great.
Oh, thank you, Mark. But he likes it, so that's a good sign, I think. Let's go back. And we're almost out of time. So now you can remember the email from earlier on if you like. So you can send emails yourself if you like, or you can use that QR code. It brings you to the chat interface. So now you're allowed to play with that instance I just had up. So you can try it yourself. It's really real. You can try weird things if you like. I have to say, I have built that demo, so I'm pretty sure it will fail at some point in time. But that's probably more exciting. If you have weird scenarios, let me know. You can also ask me why they didn't get through. So there's a QR code. Do it yourself. So that concludes it. So I hope that gave you a good idea, a bit of inspiration that, I mean, the change is huge. I think that now everybody starts to understand. Agents can do things so fast, so quick, so cheap that we will see so many like really different business models, but also like different ways of IT is done. Do we have all the answers nowadays, like even as a society, how that works? Of course not. But for us, for example, we gathered a lot of ideas over the last 2 or 3 years. We did a lot of that. Jakob mentioned that yesterday, over 50. Oh, I have it to do. Over 50 of these pilots in a really short time frame where we really delivered a lot of value already. So that's exciting, and I can just like ask you to do something together. We have ideas. We have a lot of technology already ready. That's the opportunity to jump on right now. I can only ask you to do that. I would be excited to do that together with you. And speaking of that, together, we're actually now switching gears and want to look at like one of those POCs, and then you get rid of teams. You start doing it. Very good. Awesome. We already have 3 processes in there. But now we want to look at one of those POCs that happen in real life with a real customer. So I want to ask Ante on stage, actually, and thank you very much.